In this video, I'm going to teach you how to speak with confidence in the IELTS speaking exam. So, let's begin. Firstly, I will explain what the IELTS exam is and we will go over each part of the exam. Then we will talk about the 5W method and how you can use it to pass your IELTS speaking exam. And finally, I will show you some examples of model answers. Also, a little bit later in the video, I will teach you how to never run out of things to say in the speaking exam. Okay, so the IELTS speaking exam is split into 3 sections. You have part 1, part 2 and part 3. In part 1 of the exam, the examiner will ask you day-to-day or general questions such as what you do for a living, or how many brothers and sisters you have, or they may even ask you questions about your hometown. So in this part of the exam, the examiner will ask a question and then you answer, another question, another answer, and this will keep going on for around 4 to 5 minutes. This is very similar to part 3 of the exam, where the examiner will follow the same type of structure, with the only difference being that you will give more detailed answers. But the main focus of this exam is part 2 of the speaking exam. Part 2 of the speaking exam is slightly different, and here's how. So in part 2 of the exam, you will be expected to speak for a full 2 minutes without stopping. So you will just speak and the examiner will just listen. Now before this 2 minutes, the examiner will give you a card. Now on this card will be the theme and also a few bullet points with some questions. You will take this card and then the examiner will give you 60 seconds to make notes about the questions that are on the card. Now once your 60 seconds is over, you will use your notes to speak for a full 2 minutes. Now here's the problem with this. Firstly, you have your examiner sitting right opposite you, so you're going to feel very nervous. Secondly, 60 seconds might not be enough for you to make notes, especially when you're going to speak for a full 2 minutes without stopping. And also, you will have no idea what topic the examiner will give you to talk about. So as you can imagine, this can be extremely stressful. But don't worry, because with this technique that I'm about to teach you, it does not matter what topic you are given, you will never run out of ideas to talk about and you will speak with confidence. And this method is called the 5W method. Now the 5W method is broken down in, as you guessed it, 5 different steps. So we have who, what, where, when and why. So let's look at an example question and we'll break down the 5W method in a bit more detail. So as you can see on your screen, here is an example of a topic card similar to the one that the examiner will give you. So let's read this together. Describe something healthy you enjoy doing. You should say what you do, where you do it, who you do it with, and explain why you think doing this is healthy. Now as you can see, some of the W's are already mentioned on the card. The only one that was missing was when, so we can just add that in. Now the first step of our 5W method starts when we're making notes in our 60 seconds. So what you will do is write down the 5 W's. So you're going to write down who, what, where, when and why. Now the next step is to just fill these 5 W's in. Now I'm going to do this task twice. The first time I will do it is for beginners who just want to get into the habit of practicing the 5W method. Then I will do this again, and this time we will develop our answer into a more intermediate or advanced style answer. So if you're a beginner, you just need to add one answer for each of the 5 W's, just like this. Now the question was, describe something healthy you enjoy doing. you should say what you do. So let's start with that. So something healthy I like doing, well, going for a walk. So in your notes, you will just write down going for a walk. Then the next W is where, and here I can just write usually around my neighborhood. Now obviously you can write down whatever you want here, but this is the answer that I've chosen to write. Who, so who do you go with? I go on my own, so I will write that down. And then the next question is why? Well, here I will just write because walking gets rid of stress, so reduces stress. And then the final question, when? So I will write down every evening. Now what we've developed here is a full structure of what we will talk about once our 60 seconds is over. So half the work has already been done for us. Now you might be thinking, what happens if I speak about everything that I mentioned in the notes and I still have so much time left over? Well, don't worry, because we will be covering that later on. Now the more you practice, the more this 5W technique becomes easier and easier. So once you've done this, the next step is to develop our answers. So the way we will do this is, for each W, let's give 2 answers. That means we have double the amount of things to talk about in our 2 minutes. So let's do this together. Now, just to let you know, you do not need to give 2 answers for every W, but you can if you want. Now for this first W, we'll just give 1 answer. So describe something healthy you enjoy doing. So again, we will stick to going for a walk. Then where? Let's give 2 answers here. So I will write usually around my neighborhood and in the gym. So when I'm speaking, I can talk about both of these things. I can even add more detail in. For example, I usually walk around my neighborhood, but if it's raining and it's cold, then I will go to the gym. Okay. Now, who? Again, let's do 2 answers. So on my own or with my wife. So again, just like before, we have 2 things to talk about. I can say, well, usually I walk on my own, but if my wife is free, she will also join me. So I hope you get an idea of how we use the double answers. The next W is why, and our answer is because it reduces stress and it reduces the risk of heart disease. And the final W, which is when, every evening and sometimes in the mornings. So as you can see, all I've done there is added an extra answer for each of the W's, so I have double the things to talk about. Now let's practice the 2-minute speaking, and the way we'll do this is by using myself as an example, and I will show you a model answer. So let's go. Right, let's go. Now in your exam, you will have your piece of paper in front of you, and you're allowed to look at this piece of paper whilst you are talking for your 2 minutes. For this example though, I've just saved the notes on my phone. I don't know if you can see them clearly, but they're saved on my phone. So let's begin. Now, there are many healthy things that I enjoy doing. One of the healthiest things that I like to do though is going for a walk. Most of the time when I go for a walk, it's usually in my own neighborhood. The reason why I prefer to go for a walk in my neighborhood is because there's so many beautiful trees that you can look at whilst you're walking. And also, these trees just breathe out fresh air. Now, when I do go for a walk, it's on my own. Now, I know most people don't like this, but I actually love going for a walk on my own. It gives me time to just wind down and also listen to some music. Now, moreover, there's lots of reasons why I like to go for a walk. The most important reason though is because it gets rid of stress. Working as hard as I usually do throughout the week, there's nothing better than just relaxing and winding down whilst going for a walk. And when I do go for a walk, it's often in the evening time, and that's because throughout the daytime I'm working, so in the evenings I'm free, so I prefer to go at that time. And there you have it, that's your answer. Okay, now what happens if you are talking and you've not finished but your 2 minutes is over? Well, the examiner will just simply tell you to stop, and that's not a bad thing, so don't worry if you haven't covered everything. The second thing is, what happens if you finish everything that you wanted to talk about and there's still time left over? Well, in that case, all you have to do is repeat the process with the 5 W's. So as an example, you've talked about everything, but you still got 45 seconds left. Then you can just talk about something else using the 5 W's. And here is an example of how you can do this. Now, for this example, we will be answering 2 questions for each W. So let's get started. So there are many healthy things that I enjoy doing. One of them is going for a walk. When I go for a walk, it's usually within my own neighborhood. Now, the reason why I like to walk in my own area is because I live in a very beautiful area that's filled with lots of beautiful trees. However, in the winter time, it can get extremely cold and it's not practical to walk in this cold. So in that case, what I usually do is just go for a walk in the gym. Now, when I go for a walk, majority of the time it's on my own, but if my wife is free, she too will join me, and then we'll just talk on the way, and that too will be extremely enjoyable. Now, my life is filled with lots of healthy habits, for example, eating healthy. But the reason why I chose to talk about walking is because it's filled with so many benefits. For example, walking gets rid of so much stress. And if you work as hard as me throughout the days and sometimes the weekends, you're just filled with stress, so walking just helps me relax. Also, I did read in a journal article that walking can reduce the risk of heart rate. Now, as I'm getting older, this is becoming more of a serious issue for me, so I want to manage this whilst I can. And to touch on the final question, which is when I go for a walk, majority of the time it's in the evenings. But every now and then, depending on the weather, I will go for a walk in the mornings. Now, if you want to see more videos of me answering IELTS speaking questions, click on this video over here and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.